Hello, welcome to the season finale of the Overclock Workshop. Possibly the series finale as well. We'll have to basically wait and see. I'll explain that stuff at the end though. Basically, hello, it's the final episode. Which means we're doing the Voltaic Stun Sweeper, aka the Boomerang for Scout. You have to bear with me a little bit. I just got back from a run, so I'm quite out of breath. Should probably catch my breath beforehand. I can catch my breath beforehand. Give me a couple minutes. Anyway, we're back and I'm ready to go. Anyway, so the Voltaic Stun Sweeper is probably, I think it has an interesting status in sort of the grenades of Deep Rock, in that it's definitely not at the top, but it's also very far from the bottom. It's quite divisive in the sense that there's a lot of people who like it and a lot of people who think that it's just straight up bad. And I think a lot of people just think it's also straight up good. I'm in the camp of thinking it's straight up good. I would potentially make the argument for best scout grenade as well. I think it's really great, and so that puts me in an awkward position with, especially with the way that I've been doing these workshops. It's like, well, what do I actually, in the sense of what I've been doing, is actually mainly using these overclock ideas to make suggestions for the actual base item. Well, how would I do that on something that I already think is quite strong? Well, I still think there are some quality of life and sort of interesting changes that could give the Stun Sweeper something else. The truth is, it's really good on its own. It really doesn't need anything else. It has a really strong identity, but I still think there are some cool ideas that need to be addressed. Also, it's the final episode, so we've got to do it. Just get this out of the way. It's finally happening. I'm going to be free. Sorry, big truck just passed up. Anyway, just passed by, or is parked up outside. It's kind of distracting. Anyway, so I think we should just jump straight into it, and I think you're actually going to agree with some of the ideas I've got here. So, yeah, you can ignore the names. A lot of the names here are actually really terrible. So the clean, though, adds a small amount of melee damage. Will now use all hits on one enemy if there are no others nearby. So this is both quality of life, also something that sort of Microsoft Office does is it doesn't like the word actually. It always tries to correct it to something else, and it's like, no, actually is a good word, actually. Anyway, small amount of melee damage and use all hits on one enemy if there are no others nearby. Yeah, it's all quality of life. So the melee damage part, we'll start with that. It's something I think a lot of us expected. Me and Tyler definitely did when we first saw the Boomerang. We thought, oh, this is going to be like the new melee grenade, basically. And by the way, I want to point out, I still think melee grenades, one per class, is actually something that should be done. But so far, it's only on Driller. And the Stun Sweeper should have been one. It's like a throwing knife-esque, or throwing knife adjacent weapon, a sort of bladed boomerang that he uses as a weapon. In my opinion, for the same reasons that the Impact Axe does, this should apply melee damage. Now, not all melee damage, and I'm actually going to refer to, I think Carl does cover this. If it doesn't, I'll take a pause and go and look on the actual wiki. But the Boomerang is split into two different types of damage, which I think most people probably understand: direct damage and electric damage. Although the electrocution is just from the DPS, it actually does 35 damage per hit, 35 direct damage. I want that to be melee damage. It wouldn't make a difference. The Stun Sweeper can't hit weak points anyway, but it does mean if it happened to kill an enemy with the direct damage, then you would be able to proc Vampire with it, and that's the only difference. But I still think it deserves to be able to do that. So I'm not actually suggesting that we add more damage in the form of melee damage. I'm just suggesting a full-on conversion, and I think that makes perfect sense as well. I don't think it'll make any difference other than enable the Vampire thing, which I think is completely fair, by the way. Now, the second part is something that I really want, and it sort of plays into the biggest weakness of the Stun Sweeper. The biggest thing that it could have that I think is holding it back from being objectively unique amongst the scout grenades. That is the idea of making it a single target damage grenade, almost. So something that the Boomerang can't do. Well, something I like about the Boomerang is, at the very least, if there's at least two enemies, it will bounce between as many times as it can. But if there's only one enemy for it to target, then it will only hit that enemy once and return back to you, which is a huge waste of a grenade. Even though you have 8 of them, it's a huge waste. I believe, objectively, that the Boomerang should be able to perform all of its hits on one enemy if there's only one enemy to hit. I think you should absolutely be able to do that. That would allow you to achieve actually decent damage against larger enemies like Dreadnoughts and things. Now, I already like it on certain I think I think the stun sweeper is an awesome grenade, especially in elimination and industrial sabotage, because of its applications in the different stages of those missions. Elimination specifically, there's consistently a use for it in every dreadnought fight. First of all, applying electrocution is the biggest one. Just applying electrocution to allow for certain damage bonuses from your primaries, or your secondaries actually, given that it is taking up the grenade slot. But also, for the twins, it can actually deal some decent damage because it bounces between them. It will get at least 4 hits on each of the twins. But I say, why can't we just do that, even if there's only one? And I think we should be able to. I think it would be really cool. It would basically allow it to be far more useful in situations where you need to deal with a high priority target that maybe you don't want to use your actual main weapon ammo for. And beyond that, I think it just makes perfect sense. I would love it. I think everyone would love it. It would make the grenade so much more versatile than it already is. It's a really versatile grenade, but I think this is an aspect of it that will sort of really raise it up to a point where it's it has a ground to stand on that cannot be sort of overtaken by any of the other scout grenades. It would have something truly special to itself. And I think it sort of deserves that still, even though it's really great on its own. So yeah, I think both of these changes, both of these things would work as good changes to the weapon, to the grenade. The next one, maybe not so much. Please ignore the name once again, it's awful. So I'm really going to take the second part of this. So we have increased max number of hits. Yeah, okay, that's for an overclock, not for the real game. We can manually allocate hits through smart targeting. Now, both this and the unstable overclock sort of go hand in hand in terms of a larger change that I would like to see to the stun sweeper. So I was always thinking, I think there was an idea when we first saw the teaser for the stun sweeper. You know, in those original teasers, the HUD elements were hidden, so we didn't know exactly how it worked. We know now you just throw it and it just automatically tracks whatever targets it feels like. But I proposed that it might use the smart rifle targeting system. You would hold down the grenade button, and it would sort of paint enemies with a target, and that could even include multiple hits on the same enemy. I think there is still good reason to implement this in and of itself, and this actually comes under the larger idea of actual rework in terms of how the grenade works. And I have to factor in the next one as well. The Overclock, the Kylie Boomerang, sort of inspired by. I mean, I know that they're a real thing, but it's inspired by the balloons, the BTD6 upgrade. Is when you throw the boomerang, it just goes in a straight line, and it can hit as many enemies as there are. But it only goes a certain distance, so you know it'll go and then come back. But it can hit as many enemies as there are in that distance. Which is obviously a really strange idea, but I think that would give it a really interesting usage in situations where you've kited a lot of enemies. And that would also override the biggest weakness or the biggest thing that people use as a criticism of the stun sweeper, in that it can only hit a limited number of enemies. Except in this case, you would have less control over it. So the rework that I'm sort of proposing is that if you were to just tap the grenade button, you throw it like this. You just throw it in a straight line. It can hit as many enemies as there are in the distance that it covers. But if you were to hold it, then you'd actually activate the smart targeting, and that would basically be how you use it, like how it is now, except you'd have to paint the targets and sort of manually. Obviously, that would be kind of weird. It's just like, oh, why would I do that when I can just sort of throw it? Well, it's just the difference between having control and having to kite enemies, and sort of the difference between those two things and which one you prefer, which one's more practical. And the fact is, using the smart targeting would be more practical in most situations, but having the ability to throw it in a straight line and hit as many enemies as you've kited would be really, really cool and really satisfying, and I think would really downplay a lot of the haters of this grenade. Not that I think that needs to happen. I think these are just cool ideas more than really necessary changes. I think a lot of the people's criticisms, like the people who criticize the Sun Sweeper, I really do disagree with them. I think it's in a really good place, but I still agree with everything that I'm saying. I think the rework that I'm proposing here between these two is much more elevated, and it's not something that I inherently need to happen, but I really do specifically this actually, the using all the hits on a single enemy is a change that I really, really want to see made to the Stun Sweeper. I think it would be perfect for it. I think it would, not only would it really just feel right, and it would please so many of the people who already like it, but I think it would turn a lot of heads of the people who dislike it as well. I think it would be a really respected grenade if this change were to happen. And I think a consideration of implementing the smart targeting in some way is not ridiculous. It might not be the best idea in the world, but I kind of want the Kylie effect more than anything else. So if there's any way for that to be implemented, I would love to see it. But yeah, that's actually it. I hope I've done a good job explaining my points. I think to really drive things home, I really do think that the second half of that clean is the thing that I want to see the most, and I hope people agree with me on that. Please tell me if you do, because I really do think it would be an objectively good change that would really heighten this grenade in ways that make sense, in ways that wouldn't be broken. But yeah, that really is everything. Give me a moment. So in terms of moving forward with what's going to be in this slot going forward, this video slot, I'm going to be sort of in a transitionary phase. I think I'm going to keep up Build Showcase. If anything, Build Showcase is going to get more exciting. It's going to start to be sort of it's going to start to be phased in and out of itself with sort of like more specific overclock focused videos. And that could even result in actually some shorter videos too. But it's still very much still going to remain gameplay focused. But what's going to replace the Overclock workshops is a bit of a different story, basically. So the next video will, unless I really feel the need to re-record it, and that will take some more time, it is definitely going to be the warnings guide that I recorded a while back. I just need to make sure that that's okay. I don't think I said anything wrong in it, but there might be very good reason to trim the fat. It's quite a long video. But after that, this is going to transition into sort of an older series that I abandoned a while ago called the Barrel Vision Spotlight, where I sort of just focus on any given part of the game, very small aspects, even very large aspects, and sort of basically just stream of consciousness about them for at least 10 minutes. Say whatever I can, my thoughts on them, sort of break them down, possibly even give tips. This would include things like individual weapon mods and overclocks, the weapons themselves, the classes, equipment, types of stats effects, enemy types, missions, equipment, any part of the game, even individual beers. It's something I'll take suggestions for. I have a list of pretty much everything in the game that I can sort of draw on, but I wouldn't mind suggestions on what to cover next. But that's going to be sort of transitionary. It's very low effort, very stream of consciousness, like I said. But it might also stay around for a while. It depends. The Overclock Workshop will definitely come back, but I'm not sure in what form. If anything, I would have to say it's going to come back in the form of some reworks. And that might be more spaced out with sort of spotlights in between. I'll occasionally do videos where I sort of suggest reworks. I think I'm going to do it per class. And that could be like a monthly thing leading up to the next maintenance update. I'm not sure. Either way, the one thing you can expect is the warnings guide at some point, and definitely for this slot to transition towards the Barrel Vision Spotlight, at least within the next month. But yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed the Overclock Workshop. I know it's been an interestingly low-performing series over the last few months, and I completely respect that and actually agree with it. I think in a lot of ways, these were misguided, but I really didn't want to let these ideas that I came up with go to waste. But obviously, it's based on a really difficult to rationalize hypothetical scenario that I just know isn't going to happen. So I really had to adapt it and sort of go in a different direction with it. Either way, I'm happy that I stuck with it to the end, and I'm also happy that it's over because it has been sort of it has felt somewhat redundant, but I've still been happy to do these videos, and I hope they've been enjoyed by at least some people. But either way, once again, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to stay on top of everything to do with Deep Rock and Roadcore, and click the bell as well. God, I hate that routine. It's so cynical. I hate it, but you know, it's what we have to do. Either way, I'll see you next time.